Welcome back to Breakthrough, where we talk about business strategy, execution, and results for your business. And today we are talking about how to build a brand, not a business. Now, again, a lot of times people confuse the two. I want to build my business. The reality is that's great. There's nothing wrong with building a good business, and it does a great job. Most businesses, if you look at the entire landscape of business today, I would say 80% of businesses are just that, businesses. 20% of those, though, are brands. Now, why does a brand matter, and what does that mean? Brands are different. What that means is you've got the ability to basically transcend a business into becoming something much more connected to your guest, your consumer, your customer, whatever it might be. It is a completely different way of working with your product. So we're going to talk about three different, what I call the Breakthrough Brand Guide, three different topics that are essentially the guide for you to take your business to a brand. One is you've got to understand and execute your mission. Number two is you're going to create a transportable brand visual. And number three is develop lockstep with your target customer or audience. And we'll break down each one of these for you. All right. First up is understanding and executing on your mission. First, you're going to find the perfect mission. I'm going to go to the whiteboard here, kind of talk a little bit about that. We're going to go with blue today. Brand blue. And the thing is, when you look at a mission, a lot of times people will take a mission statement and you have a few things that are the bellwethers. So the things that matter most to what you're trying to do as a business. It might be, let's take Foodable for a second, our own network. So what we wanted to do on a mission was create, one, value for the industry. That was one of our biggest things. The way that we were going to do it is we were going to tell good stories. All right? So we are looking at content because there's a lot of content out there. What separates us from from other businesses was we were going after the good stories of the industry. And then the last thing was we were going to create a product that had high value. So this was meaning quality. This means speed. This means, in some cases, in our situation, distribution, things of that nature, but super value for what one of our customers might get. So finding your perfect mission for your product market fit. And when I say product market fit, means you've got to have a product that's going to fit the target markets, and this can be multiple markets, market one, market two, but it's got to be a fit for what you're trying to do as a business. Now, there's a lot of people compare this to what they call, I think it's minimum viable product, MVP. MVP is a little different. MVP is going with, like when you're developing a business for the very beginning, meaning you're going with the minimal viable product, meaning you're building the least you can to find out if it'll actually fit one of these areas for your customers. So that's when you're usually in a startup. If you're a developer or someone like that, that's what they do is an MVP versus a product market fit. So again, mission is going to be key on developing the first cornerstones of what your brand is about, and then finding that product market fit is super important, because if this doesn't match this, then you have what I call a brand mismatch. Your brand doesn't fit your market. It will never become a brand. So that's a big one. Translate that mission into a product. And this is a process that is not easy to do. The first test is if you have a brand versus a business. So if you can translate what you're doing in this mission right here to a product, okay? If you can translate it into a product, now you've got a brand. This is a key step in the brand building process that a lot of people miss, because they think, hey, I'm going to build a new widget, or let's take the restaurant industry, I'm going to build a new brand. But in reality, maybe their mission isn't core. They don't have all the mission components in place. And really what they have is a business or a basic product. And a lot of people will tell you that when they look at something, that you're building or that you've got in terms of business, they'll tell you, hey, this is a product or a service, not a business. That's even lower than this is a business, not a brand. So anyway, the next thing is we're going to go into expand the mission into advocates. So now you've taken this, remember, we're off the mission statement here. Now you're going to expand this mission into the advocates, okay? Now these people are where a business becomes a brand. Remember I told you that brands essentially kind of work 24/7. They are working even when you're sleeping. And the reason is because you've taken a mission and created a great product and now developed advocates for it. So I talked a little bit about this in a previous video about how Apple had done that, how Nike has done that. And they create fans that are so rabid about their brand that they help kind of perpetuate that brand out there. So it's a huge value. So this is the number one thing you're going to be doing. Again, on understanding and executing your mission, find your perfect mission for your product market fit right here. Make sure that you translate that mission into a product, get to this point right here with a quality product, and then of course expand that mission into advocates. And remember, you've got to have that product market fit in the meantime to make sure that the product you are using it. And I'll give you an example of how this is done. So if you look at, let's look at brand velocity now over here. Shake Shack, on another video, we talked about Shake Shack and how they were able to do this. Brand velocity was one of the main things that I talked about. This is Shake Shack's brand velocity indicator, meaning how many people are talking about that. Remember going back to whiteboard, we were talking about having the advocate. Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about right here. Acceleration of influence is a razor-thin process that has to be cultivated constantly. Now, let me talk to you about this because this is a really important step in building a brand. When you are building a brand, the influencers that you're essentially getting to advocate for you can turn on you on a dime. That's a big problem. It's really a very narrow, razor-thin process that you have to do it. Great brands can do it, and great brands can correct when they get off course. And I'll use Nike as an example here. Nike, Colin Kaepernick, they have a great mission as a brand. You can even go back to some of the things that happened with Gillette when they did the Macho Man thing and all that call out, that really hit their brand. But it was a risk they could take. Here's the key. Some brands are bulletproof. They can do something wrong and still be able to win. That's when you know you have a solid brand, when you do something wrong and you can still correct and win back your influencers. Chipotle is another one. They were losing influencers because of their health scare a few years back. Now Chipotle is right back on top and winning the influencer game. But remember, you've got to have the influencers, and also as a brand leader, you've got to know that it's a very razor-thin issue because you can fall on either side at any time. All right, we're going to go number two. Number two is building a transportable brand visual. All right, so a lot of people think, oh gosh, what's a brand visual? Well, Apple is by far the poster child to brand visuals. This company is, and of course, you know, when Steve Jobs was alive, he was the visionary probably the visionary on the planet that understand how to do what I'm talking about right here. In fact, he probably wrote this book on it. Creating a brand visual is doing a few things that really connects with the customer in a way that basically drives a personal kind of passion connection with them, all right? It's something that the product almost does just by sitting there on the table, whether you're using a MacBook like me or maybe an iPhone, whatever it might be, or maybe you're an Android user and you're waiting for the big Galaxy release. The point is that those brands have been able to connect with their customers in a way to drive this personal connection, and they're doing it through brand visuals or kind of an overall feeling that brand is actually exemplifying. Two is visual is one of the most compelling aspects of a brand that separates from a business. So again, Why is it that Apple won the smartphone race before anybody else was in it? They created an unbelievably cool design phone that basically when the product was launched, all they had on the market was Blackberries and Palm Pilots. So they were literally leaps ahead of the competition, and everybody wondered, why are these guys getting into the phone business? Well, that was an example of building a compelling aspect that really connected to the consumer, or in their case, their customers, going from what was just the computer market and OS market share to becoming a mobile phone company. And now they're doing it with services. Now they've launched the Apple Card. There's a lot of things that this brand does right because they're transporting it into the next level, all through this visual connection into their overall business. So the third item here is translate the visual in all aspects of your brand. Again, that goes back to Apple and what they were able to do from the Mac to the iPhone, to the iPad, now into services. All of this is a transportable process that brands can take. And that's the difference between a business and a brand. A business typically can build a product and maybe can build another product, but it doesn't necessarily connect to product one, or maybe it doesn't connect to product two. A brand starts to build product on product on product, and they all seem to mesh together. So what Sony and Panasonic have even done this in the DSLR race for being able to provide a product. And again, they're winning that brand affinity with their customers, even with studios like us. So that gets into all the elements here. And then, of course, create the story behind that vision. Apple has done it. It's just, they are the perfect poster child, I believe, in creating a true brand. Now, whether or not they can hold that course for the next 2 decades is still yet to be seen. But the fact that they were able to do that for 2 decades is a proven model that works. All right, so we're going to go to number 3 now. And before I jump to 3, I want to kind of talk about how they did it, meaning Apple. They're playing the long game. This is, again, another brand move as they look at visions that are 10, 20 years in the making. Steve Jobs was looking way out in advance, even when he was building the iPhone. They understand the personality connection, meaning their brand has a personality, and the type of people that they basically attract has created its own little ecosystem of brand customers and brand lovers, brand loyalists. That's the personality. And they obviously connected visually. They're one of the sexiest brands out there. If you haven't got a chance to read a book by, it's the three horsemen, I believe, Apple, Google, and Facebook. And Apple is the one that kind of drives the idea of passion. And when you look at those 3 companies, Google's the brain, and then Facebook being the heart. And then number 4 right here is they stayed true to the brand charter. And if you are a brand, you start to develop a charter over time of what your core elements are. And that means your mission and your vision start to combine with your products themselves. They start to mind meld, so to speak, all into a brand charter. And those are the things that are probably the most difficult things to achieve, but definitely can separate your business from a brand. All right, so let's go to number 3. Now, number 3 is make sure that you're staying lockstep with your target customer. Again, we'll go right back to Apple, and a good example is they basically went in. Remember, we were talking about product market fit and minimum viable product. So they really got a product market fit honed in, and they were lockstep with what the needs were for the market, and they fit the void, and it was just a perfect match, and hence history was made. The iPhone took dominance market share, and basically they won the market right through there. So next was understand the match of the mission and the vision to your customer. And we also talked a little bit about that on the whiteboard. Vision and mission start to come together when your mission is in place and the vision for what you have as a brand going to the next level. When those things start to come together, that's when you've started to really accelerate your brand growth. So again, that goes into your next phase here, which is expand and duplicate verticals. Apple's another great product that has done that, and that is expanding into additional verticals. So they started with the computer, phone, tablet, services, and so on. Nike's done it with great shoes, but Nike also has a great apparel line, but also Nike is a brand in itself. There's several brands that have been able to do this with expanding into duplicate verticals, but remember, you got to stay true to those core qualities in your mission of what makes up your business. Very important that you do that when you expand. And then maintaining alignment with your customer. So this is where you don't cut corners. So a lot of times, let's say you're a restaurant brand and you've created a great business like Chipotle, and you've got to stay in alignment. So with Chipotle, what they figured out is they needed sustainability, fresh, a lot of visual aids that created this kind of clean connection, meaning clean food, to the consumer. What happens is when they got off kilter with their food scare, they started to lose that alignment with their guests. Now, it wasn't necessarily their fault, or maybe it was if they weren't keeping their security measurements in place. But the point is that the alignment requirement that you've got to maintain throughout your brand life is very important. So don't cut corners when it comes to staying aligned with your business and your brand.